The Liberal government is planning to reintroduce Bill C-61, which is the First Nations Clean Water Act. This bill was introduced by the previous Liberal government under Justin Trudeau, but ultimately died when Parliament was prorogued. We are going to talk about the bill, but first there's something that you need to know. As of right now, there are 37 boil water advisories in effect for 35 First Nations communities. Some of those communities have been under a boil water advisory for over 30 years. The provincial governments in Alberta and Ontario completely opposed this legislation, and they wrote a letter to the federal government asking them to not reintroduce this bill. In that letter, they said, quote, "We are hopeful that this new federal government will move away from policies and legislation that undermines competitiveness, delay project development, and disproportionately harm specific provinces and territories without any quantifiable benefits to the natural environment." So what does this bill actually do? First, it affirms the right to clean drinking water as a human right. It recognizes First Nations jurisdiction over water and recognizes their inherent right to self-governance under Section 35 of the Constitution. It also lays out a federal minimum standard for water quality and wastewater management on First Nations lands. The bill also legally requires the federal government to supply funding to those First Nations communities to meet those standards. And the funding that they receive must be comparable to non-Indigenous communities. It also allows for protection zones around key water sources. Think of areas like lakes and rivers that are critical to drinking water. The legislation also has a regular review mechanism to ensure that the federal government is meeting the commitments of this legislation. First Nations leaders and chiefs across the country are calling on the federal government to enact this legislation as quick as possible. And the Liberal government says that they will introduce this legislation in the fall, and they call on all provinces, territories, and parliamentarians to pass this legislation. If you want to read the letter sent out by Alberta and Ontario's Environment Minister, as well as the legislation itself, I will email it out to you in my news roundup tonight. So make sure you go to the link in my bio and sign yourself up for that.